Isaiah Okoth is a transformation leader with more than 20 years of international experience in the healthcare industry. Known for his ability to drive growth, innovation, and business turnarounds, he has worked with global healthcare companies, positioning them for success across Eastern Africa. As founder and managing director of Zenopia Group Limited, Isaiah is pioneering access to advanced nuclear medicine, radiopharmaceuticals, molecular imaging, and life sciences solutions. His vision is simple yet powerful to bring world-class healthcare technologies closer to the communities that need them most. A strategist, an innovator, and above all, a catalyst for change. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Isaiah Okoth.
No, thank you very much, MT. Um, Looks like a mouthful in terms of the journey that I've taken. But some people look at it and say this guy moves a lot. But I think I decided to do that over the last 35 years. So I decided that I'm not going to sit in one chair for 35 years. And that has been my character ever since I was a child. So I don't sit still for too long. But today is Jenny's day. I think I've known Jenny for quite some time. And I met her when she was still a student. I've seen her grow. And I think I'm always impressed every time, I see her, take a step. And I think when she approached me and said, I should come and talk during the launch of her book, I greatly agreed. I think, Jenny, you are competing with my son, who also just launched his book a few days ago, not in Kenya though, but in the UK. So I was also sharing with her my son's book, that he should also buy my son's book. So I will also be taking your book to my son, so that you have this exchange. So within the same year, those things have happened. But actually the main reason is because I really appreciate, I think I really respect her for what she does. And that's the reason why I took time to be here. Usually I don't attend these sessions. I'm actually a social introvert. But I tell myself I call myself a social introvert, but a professional extrovert. There are people like that, and that's me. So if you see me here, probably rarely see me somewhere again at such an event. So thank you, Jane, for inviting me. So as I said, I think I will be talking about personal investment and personal development, but I've been requested to talk about Zenopia a little bit. Zenopia, the company that I basically started or established a few years ago, 2020. Zenopia is actually focused on an area called nuclear medicine and molecular imaging. A lot of people may not connect it with something that is already happening. But if you have had any patient going to Kenyatta University or going to Aga Khan University and going through what you call a PET CT or a gamma camera, those things called molecular medicine, they have sort of what they call integrated molecular center at Kenyatta University for all the cancer patients. Those people who go there, when they go through that PET machine, or before they go through that PET machine, you need to inject them with something. Because the PET machine, or the PET imaging machine, does not radiate, or does not, unlike X-ray, it does not, send rays into someone's body. The PET machine picks rays from the body. So it's the body that is actually radiating. And so your heart or your lung or your brain or your bones will be sending signals that are then captured. And those signals are the ones that then show where the problem is. The difference between a PET and a gamma camera, they are what you call molecular imaging and what you call radiology equipment, which is X-ray, CT, MRI. CT, MRI, and X-ray give the doctors the image, the anatomy of the organ. So they will show you the heart, the way it is and the way it looks, the picture, the still picture of the heart, how it looks, and it helps them then determine whether the look of the heart, or the look of the lung, or the look of, prostate, or the look of thyroid is normal or not. Now, in order for you to then understand whether the functionality of that organ is correct or is right, you need to let the organ itself send images, because it will be sending images as it functions. And to do that, you need what you call molecular imaging, which is a PET and a SPECT CT, and to use that, you need what you call nuclear or radiopharmaceuticals. So pharmaceuticals, but radioactive drugs. And we help hospitals, number one, set up laboratories where they can prepare those drugs, and also import raw material that they can use to prepare those drugs, radioactive drugs. And therefore, we develop radiopharmacies, we establish radiopharmacies for these facilities, and also import radiopharmaceuticals. And that's nuclear medicine, in short. Sorry. A lot of people think I'm a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a health professional. I'm actually an engineer. But curiosity led me there. But I hope that gives you sort of a feel of what we're dealing with. And that's actually the reason, the lack of molecular imaging in the country and in the region, because we only had those facilities in South Africa and North Africa. And so most of the patients who required more detailed diagnosis when they were suffering from cancer had to travel to South Africa, India, Europe, or United States. With this capability at Kenyatta University and Aga Khan University, we now have that facility here and those services in the country, so people don't have to go outside the country for treatment. And we are working with several other hospitals to establish similar facilities. So soon you'll have some in Kisumu, Nakuru, Mombasa, and everywhere. So let's work together for that. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, out of curiosity. Thank you. So in the introduction, I think it was mentioned that I'm a mentor, entrepreneur, business executive, and board member. But I left out one of the most important things, intentionally. I'm also a father of 2 grown-up children, both professionals. So I still also have that responsibility with me. I think that responsibility doesn't disappear. So I still have it with me, and that's part of my profile. So today, as I say, I won't talk about finance. I won't talk about financial investment. I won't talk about how to make money, because I think there are better people to talk about that in this room than I do. However, I will just share my experiences and talk about personal development and investment, which is your personal development and your personal investment as a person. That's what I talk about, because I think that with that in mind, or once you have that, and once you focus on that, a lot of things actually come together. And the wealth and the financial investment that we're going to talk about, wealth creation, can actually be nurtured within a better environment if you have invested or developed your personality properly. My lifetime focus, and I keep on reflecting, I'm saying, when I went to school, did I actually work towards being a wealthy person? When I finished high school, was my intention to make money? When I finished university, was my intention to make money? And I usually ask myself those questions. And in most cases, the answer is no. I just did what I did because I loved what I did and I wanted to do it. I was curious, I wanted to do it and did it. In the process, because I did it, I tried to do it as best as I could. Someone looked at me and said, this guy can probably add value to whatever I'm trying to put together. So let's give him an opportunity. And then, of course, they have to pay for my livelihood. So then they start paying me a salary. And I continue doing what I love. And when I get tired, you will see, as you can see from my CV, I walk away. Okay? Sometimes I walk away because what you promised is not what I'm doing. Sometimes I walk away because we agreed that this is what we're going to achieve, and I've achieved it, and I want to do more, but you can't provide more, so I walk away. And I'll tell you why I do that. So, personal investment and personal development have been my lifetime focus. When I came back to Kenya, tells you how old I am, I came back after my master's back to Kenya in 87. I'd just done my master's. So I started working, looking for a job. I was employed by the Ministry of Public Works. Then from there, I stayed there for 3 months. I was actually part of the team that was working on the electronics and telecommunication at Kasarani. When Kasarani was just being built, we saw the first Chinese coming to Kenya, building Kasarani back then, and I was responsible for that. After the games, which was after a few months, there was no work, so I left the ministry, went to private sector. I changed jobs 3 times within a span of 9 months in Kenya. And that was because I had a job in every time, and I never missed a job. In fact, I never stayed out for a month. I was quitting and I was getting a new job. But what drove me was not money. I had a job, and I always had a job, but there was no work. So someone is paying me, but is not giving me opportunity to actually apply my knowledge. And for me, that was like wasting my time. And time, as I mentioned to you, is not recoverable. So if you are going to pay me a certain amount of money, but not enabling me to apply my knowledge, then you are not building my value. And if you're not building my value, as time goes, the amount of money that you are paying me will not be sufficient for some of the obligations that I'm likely to have. Maybe tomorrow I'll get married, and you're still paying me the value that I'm providing, or I was providing when I joined when I was single. So I need to move so that I develop value to enable me to meet my obligations as I do what? As I grow. And if you're not providing that platform, then I will leave you with your job. You can give it to somebody else. And I did that. And people sometimes tell me, because you have, it's because you had options. The answer is no. I did. In fact, most times I didn't quit without an option. I just left. The other thing that I've focused on is creating societal impact. Creating impact in the society, in whatever I do. It's not just about me doing something, but making a difference in the society. Why? Because my being is heavily dependent on my social ecosystem. If the ecosystem is not conducive, I can achieve as much as possible, but I'll never be comfortable. So, important that whatever I do, I make a small contribution to the development of the society. That doesn't mean I give them money, but I give them the value that I can provide. The third one is focusing on sustained personal relevance. The fourth is good health. And the last and most important for me in terms of lifetime focus is being happy. Now, personal development and investment. the main capital, and I was talking to somebody about time, the main capital in personal development and investment is time. And interesting enough, it is the most critical and yet the most readily available. And it's also one that has been equally distributed by the Almighty, equally distributed and given to everybody. So everybody has 24 hours a day. With that, you are supposed to acquire knowledge, gain wisdom, acquire personal assets that will help you in your personal development and investment. Now, within the personal assets, there's also a difference. There are tangible assets and intangible assets. Now, what are tangible assets? Tangible assets are things like money in the bank, gold, houses, cars, whatever we possess. Those are tangible assets. Then there are so-called intangible assets. What are they? That's the knowledge. That's the skill. The wisdom that we carry with us. That is what you call intangible asset. And sometimes I call them hard and soft assets, where you have the tangible being the hard assets and the intangible being the soft assets. And all of them are important and take various forms of importance depending on the ecosystem that you exist in. And I'll give you an example. In Europe, where people have not had war for the last 75 years, people are very focused on building big accounts, having wealth in banks and whatever it is, and saving, having nice houses and mansions, nice cars, everything. Okay? Why? Because the is there. They may not, sometimes they don't even care about education. And I think it's almost happening in Kenya. I think if you talk to some people in Kenya, they tell you education is not important. Wacha tuende tukatafute pesa, tutengeneze pesa, tujenge manyumba, which is okay. And the reason why people talk like that is because Kenya has been stable for quite some time. So as generations emerge, they don't see any disruptions. Now, if at one point something like what happened in Uganda happens to you, or happens in Kenya, or Syria, or what is happening, let's get it close, like what is happening now in Gaza, okay, where bombs are being dropped. How about what happened in Ethiopia sometimes back, or even Somalia? What happens to your hard assets? What happens to your hard asset? Can someone answer me what happens to them? Completely useless. The only thing you can carry, and you try to carry, is if you have a child or your family, you carry your family. You even leave your clothes behind. You leave your cars and everything behind. You go and move to another place. That place does not care whether you own several apartments in Nairobi or not. They don't. They don't even care whether you had 100 or a billion Kenya shillings at App's account. They don't. What they care about is what value are you bringing to them now that you have settled in their country? What can you do? Do you have skills? Do you have knowledge that you can give people? If you don't, they will give you the least available job, which pays the worst. You may even not get a job because most people focused on that. But if you also invested in soft assets, you will actually settle faster in any environment. The teachers during Uganda times happened to be still in school during Idi Amin time. We had a lot of teachers and professors who actually escaped from Uganda and came to Kenya, and immediately they arrived, the schools were basically swallowing them, Kenyan schools. So we had like PhD holders teaching us in secondary school. They were earning a living, they were being given houses, they were living very well. There are other citizens or fellow citizens who did not have that, had to start very low, almost with nothing. So it's very important that you do that. Now, the investment mix is important. Right now, we have to have two things. You have to have your hard assets, because you don't know. We may be stable for quite some time. You need to pass something to your family and the rest. But you also have to work with the possibility of things not being as stable as they are now. So you need to make that investment as well. So don't just focus on Besha. Also think about what are you putting in your brain, what skill. And we're not just saying it's reading. Even if you can repair a car, by the way, you can be a financial expert, but you're also learning how to repair a car. That can help you. You live in neighborhood and someone tells you, oh, my car is down, then you go there, fix it. If you fix two of them, next time you start moonlighting in your estate. And you start earning money and feeding your family. Now, so that, in essence, also leads me to the next point, which is relevance. And how you mix that gives you the relevance. And relevance can range from, personal relevance can range from a family relevance, friends, community, nationally, regionally, and globally. Now, let's start with the family. And I was just having a brief discussion. The discussion was, if you see the experience that we have as fathers versus mothers in Kenya, and a lot have been written about mothers and fathers, okay? The father, based on how we have been, sort of tuned by the colonial people, is you're supposed to be the breadwinner. So you go outside there and you're working and you're working and you're working, and you, every time someone asks you for anything, you tell them, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. So you have your family, but you're always busy. Okay? Eventually, in the mind of your children or whatever it is, or even your family, they see you as an ATM. Actually, that's your role. Your role is to work hard and provide. Meanwhile, you have a mother who has taken a different role. Sometimes they also provide, but they have accepted that in addition to providing, they are also an emotional component. Okay? They also provide emotional value. So people grow up, even if it's your brothers, until they can access their own ATM. What happens? Once you can access your own ATM, the guy who was the ATM before is no longer useful. Okay? So you call when they call you, you are thinking, what does he want? Okay? You have actually nothing even to talk to them about. And that's why you find most people actually going back to their mothers. Because when they look at their fathers, they're saying, yeah, you provided for me. But if I sit with you, I don't know you, you don't know me, what are we going to talk about? There's nothing. And then people get lonely, and as a result, most of us men die. And we leave everything that we provided to the others who did not, assumingly, provide. Although they also provide, but they provided something different. So it's important that you also make sure you are relevant to your family for a very long time. Now, in the community, you have also to make sure that you have some relevance. What is it that you do? Some people look at it, you go and join the church so that you can even be a guy who sings very well. So whenever there is a choir, they are looking for you because you are relevant. But if there's nothing that you provide to the community, you're actually irrelevant. So once you are relevant, you become socially isolated. And once you become socially isolated, depression comes in, my friend, and then death is very close. Nationally, how can they use you? Remember the other day they called Kinyua from retirement and said, hey, can you come and help us here? The guy was, I don't know, going into his retirement, 70 something, some years old, but he has something that he has built that people want, and they keep on chasing him. And today, even if you go into government and even companies, you find people who are 90 years old still sitting in boards. For those people who work in Britain, you have seen already, he's still working there, coming to meetings. Why? He's not just coming there because he was one of the people who said there is something that he provides. So he's relevant to that. And the same relevance can also apply to the community nationally, regionally, and globally. I just explained to you the relevance globally, where you are built, you have put your investment, you have invested personally to be able to contribute globally. Now, the next topic that I want to talk about is happiness. So what enables happiness? I think in my reflection, happiness emerges from self-awareness and self-reflection. And when you look, sometimes you look at people and you ask yourself, why is it that you're unhappy? And when they explain to you why they're unhappy, you realize that some of the things that are making them unhappy are actually not critical. But they have mixed two things. There's what we call the need and the want. We tend to sometimes confuse need and want. So need are those things that are so critical that are necessary for survival. And the wants are basically desired assets. Things that give you temporary impression. You can impress people temporarily. You can gain social acceptance temporarily. You can self-proclaim yourself to be whatever you are. And you also gain some sort of presumed recognition. Now, if you can differentiate between need and want, then you will start being content with a lot of things. Do I need a car? It depends on where I'm going. And it depends on what is available. But do I want a car? Do I need a 10-bedroom house? It depends. Because in essence, you only use probably 3 rooms if you are alone. Okay? Do you need it? Can you survive in 1 bedroom? Yeah, you used to survive in 1 bedroom. What has changed all of a sudden, and you're still single sometimes, you used to survive in 1 bedroom. Even at the university, you used to live in this small room. Okay? And you survived for several years. Then all of a sudden, you want a 10-bedroom alone because you can't live without it, and it becomes a need. But is it a need? No. But it's a want. We have arguments with my wife. Sometimes she comes, she looks at my wardrobe and says, all these clothes, do you need them? And then when I come back from a trip with another suit, he says, but you have suits, do you need another suit? You have a phone, do you need another one? And I told her, you know what? I don't need these things because I've gone past the stage of need. Whatever I'm buying now is because I want. Okay? But if I come to a stage where I'm reduced to the need, I will adjust. But if I'm at a stage where I can afford the want, I can even buy a plane. Not because I need a plane, but if I want it and I can afford it, and I've finished all the needs, why not? So, but don't confuse. Just if I buy a plane because I want a plane and all of a sudden my economic capability goes underground, I should not be depressed because I don't have a plane. If I start thinking about the fact that I need a plane and I can't afford it at that time, you know what will happen? Again, I will be depressed and I will be very unhappy. So you always need to learn and say, I can. You go to the village, you need food. Don't insist on, hey, this and that, and you want this, and it has to be cooked like this, because that food is there for survival. Now, if you go back to, don't harass your relatives with they cannot cook good food, the food you wanted, you don't eat nduma, you don't eat nduma nowadays, you don't do this, you don't do this. Just, if time comes, eat it. If you don't want to eat that, bring them what you want to eat, because maybe they cannot afford it. So don't put them under pressure, because you're also making their life difficult. So need and want are two things that we must really differentiate. And I have learned over time to tell myself, think, do you need versus do you want? Do I need to go on holiday? No. Do I want to go on holiday? Absolutely. Okay? If I can afford it. So, as I said, ability to distinguish need from want creates a personal environment for happiness. Inability to distinguish can create stress, sadness, frustration, and depression. Based on my self-reflection. The last one is good health. There is living and surviving. So, today, let me now leave this secret. I'm actually 63 years old.
Wow.
Okay. Now, the most important thing for me is not survival. I want to live. I want to live because there are even people who are 90 who are still living, very active. Okay? And there are people who are below who are actually surviving. And we are not talking here about material things. We are talking about just health-wise. Okay? Now, as long as, of course, there's nature, and nature can come in, but I try as much as possible to manage how I live. And you look at it and say, when I was a young person, I used to do this. When I reach this stage, I can only do this. When I reach this stage, I can only do this. And. Okay? And even what you eat. So, because that prolongs, yes, you have a long life, but you don't only have a long life. You also have an active life. An active life means you are independent, you can do things. You are engaged, you contribute, you create impact, you are self-aware, and also action conscious. Surviving is you are dependent and disengaged, low contribution and low impact. So, what do I do? For example, I look at it and say, okay, someone asked me the other day, why are you starting? You should be retired. Why are you starting a company, a venture at this age? I asked them, okay, so when people retire, what do they do? What do they do when they retire? Daniel, what do they do when they retire? The Kenyan person retiring means what?
Retiring means that you're no longer working towards an income.
Okay. Now, you see, the retirement thing never used to exist when our great-great-great-grandfathers lived. They never retired. You know that? They never retired. In fact, if you are, if you ever asked your grandfather, if they are still alive, and ask them, did your father retire? They will laugh at you. The retirement structure was created during Industrial Revolution in Europe. During Industrial Revolution, They needed people to work in the factories. And that was a very tough job. It was hard. And it requires a lot of physical engagement and energy. And so, someone went every morning and did the thing. And usually they used to work like 16, 17 hours a day. That's how Europe was built. Now, at a certain point, the employer looks at you and says, this one now has become completely useless. Because they can't do what they are supposed to do. So they do what? They tell you now to go and rest. Now, most of the people who are working during the industrial age were not doing things that they love. They were forced to do those things to feed their family and to feed themselves. So it was not because they liked what they were doing, but they were doing it to survive. Okay? So they were, after they have been utilized, they are then told to go back. They give you some bit of money, you go back. Now when you go back, and you have now left this job that you didn't like doing, what do you start now doing? What you always wanted to do. And if you observe all the retired people in Kenya, you will find that people are happy to go into retirement because they now are going to do what they always wanted to do, but they could not do because they had to survive. Now, if you choose to do, and if you had a chance, or you get the opportunity to do what you love, what you are passionate about, would you retire? Would you retire? No. So when someone asks me, you should be retired. Retire to what? Retire to my passion? Absolutely. But that's my passion. So I'm retiring. In a way I'm retiring, but retiring into what I love doing. So also aspire to retire into something that you love doing. And that thing that you love doing will make you even relevant. You are a contributor, you are creating impact, and you are happy, and you can live longer. So, retirement, which people celebrate, has to be seen in that aspect. The objective was to release those people who are useless, but now we are releasing people who are fed up with their jobs. And it comes to a time when you say, you know what, now we have to take you back to do what you love to do. So, to summarize, whatever I've told you right now is what I try to live. I don't do it, but I try to live that philosophy as much as possible. What are these happiness philosophies? Number one, time and money do not mix. They are always inversely proportional. If you have a lot of money, you barely have time. And if you have a lot of time, you rarely have enough money. Never strive to get those things equal, because they won't happen. If you find even the richest guy like Jeff Bezos or even Elon Musk, the richest person, that guy has zero time, zero. That's why he's not even able to marry any woman. He only produces kids and he says, it's okay, the world needs children, but I'm not responsible for those children. I'll pay for them, the mothers have to take care of them because I don't have time. He does not have time, okay? But if you have time, and most of the people who have time, and you go to the city, Gitiche Garden, okay? Or go to some of those places, you will see guys spending there the whole day, talking. But those guys, if you ask them to pay for school fees for their kids, they have nothing. They will go looking for you, the guy who has no time, to contribute towards their children's school fees. But they have time. So time, again, is irrecoverable. So once time goes, you cannot recover it. Money, on the other hand, you can lose money and still make money. So you can still recover money, but you can't recover time. The other philosophy is that all human beings are actually selfish. Their selfishness, if you want to study, their selfishness depends on their priorities. I, for one, someone asked me at one time, we were left, when my dad passed on, he left me with 17 siblings. And I said, I'm going to educate all of them. And I did. And someone at one time asked me, why are you doing all this? I said, you know what? I do that because I'm selfish. And he asked me, why? You are not selfish, you are very generous. I said, I'm selfish because I want an environment that I can thrive in and enjoy without someone harassing my brain. Today, none of my siblings, I can help them. But any one of them who comes to me and asks me, you owe me, I don't owe them anything. I gave you the same education that my parent gave me. The fact that you did not move further than me. Again, I'm talking about need and want. Okay? What I give my relatives is a want. It's not a need. Why? Because I did not choose them. My brothers and sisters, either I found them there or they found me there. I did not decide to have them. My friends, different. My children and my wife, different. Because I went out of my way to approach this lady and say, can you marry me and live with me? Okay? And later on we say, can we have these kids? And I also did some exercise to get those kids. So those ones are a need. But all the others, they are there by default. So they are not a need. And so, it's very important that you realize that everybody is selfish. They will do things, in most cases, that benefit them. Directly or indirectly. Even all those people, foundation, Bill Gates running around town and giving us money and all that, there is something. Always invest in tangible, hard assets and intangible soft assets. And as I said, needs are must-haves and are not the same as wants, which are nice to have. And finally, ever since I started thinking as a small kid, and I was telling some of the people who were sitting with me that I got a lot of caning from my parents, is because I always used to ask why. And I encourage, even during my career, I always encourage whoever I work with, or people I work with, to always ask me why, if they don't understand why. So I always ask why. You tell me, can you carry this chair to your uncle? If I don't understand why I'm the one to carry this chair, or why I should carry this chair to my uncle, I'll ask my dad, why should I carry it to him? The guy has hands and feet and everything. Why me? Furthermore, I'm much smaller than him. Okay, so of course you don't get answers. You know the answers you get. Okay, but the asking of why helps you think critically, and in thinking critically, you tend to understand your ecosystem better. You understand why things happen, and once you understand why things happen, you then are in a better position to actually handle them. So why has always been a question. I keep on telling people, my staff that I've worked with over the years, I tell them, my job as your boss is to tell you what and why. Your job is to find out the how. That is not my job. So if you come to me asking me how, then I've employed the wrong person, because that means I should have done that job myself. Mine is to explain the why we should do it. So, key thing is the why. But I just wanted to share with you my philosophy, what I've basically learned, what has made me happy. Some people tell me, you are always happy, you are always... Why? At one time I was running a company way back in my life, and I almost got chased out by my wife because I burned almost, that was 20 years ago. I started a venture that, where I lost, $1 million at that time. And I was still walking on the street and people are telling me, Isaiah, you should have collapsed by now. And I told them, no, I don't have to. Because my philosophy is, the $1 million gives me what I want. For my needs require very little money. And for those, with my soft assets, I can actually earn that small money that I need to serve my needs and survive. So why should I be unhappy? So those are my philosophies that I wanted to share with you today. I think people talk to you about financial investment and wealth management and all that and creation, but I just wanted to share with you that I told Jenny that I'm not very good at telling people how to make money because I burn money. Thank you.
Thank you.